Vitus with the Vitus Garage Auto Blog, and as always, we're talking about cars. We're talking about rip-roaring horsepower, muscle, V8s, non-electric. Yeah, we're not talking about electric cars. So a lot of times, people ask about classic cars, and you know, you got a lot of guys that are like right there in the mix, right? Do I want a classic car, or do I get something that's a modern classic? I think is what some people have said. Like you could take it as example a Challenger. You could go buy a new Challenger if that's your car of choice, and you're going to get a lot of similar feels to like a classic hot rod in the fact it's rear wheel drive. They typically have really good horsepower. You know, you can get a lot of fun action in them as far as drivability. There's a lot of fun things you can do in a car like that. Nothing wrong with that. Or you go the classic car route. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Why do you want to buy a classic car, or why not? And then also, what's the value in getting into a classic car? What's the cost? What's the storage look like? So we're going to kind of open those up a little bit. First things first is thank you for everybody that watches the channel. If you do watch, or first time checking out, please like and subscribe. We're always going to be evolving and changing and adding some new different things. I'm going to keep changing things up. This video's got, you know, a discussion here that we're going to talk about. So I really want to see comments, guys. Give me your opinion. I want to know. I'm curious. Okay, so first things first. Classic car, what are the pros and cons? Number one, you're never quite done with it. That's not bad or good, but if you're, well, some people would look at it as a bad, right? Because all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm always working on this car. Maybe, but also that's kind of the fun in it, you know, depending on if you're mechanically inclined and you want a classic car, that's probably should be expected. You're not going to buy a car that's 60 years old and drive it every day and not have things to do. You know, my father has a 65 T-Bird and looks like brand new. I think I've had it on a couple of these videos, little snippets, pictures. But you know, that car, if he drives it every day, it's gonna need certain things because it's sat for so long. And it might look like new, might run like new, but you're gonna be in that mixed bag. You know, you can't have it all. If you've had a car that looks like new, low miles, and it's been sitting in some dude's garage for a long time, and you buy it, and now all of a sudden you start driving it every day, issues that he wasn't having because it wasn't driving are going to start popping up. Seals are going to start going out. All sorts of things are going to start failing because they haven't been lubricated and ran all the time. There are circumstances where service items are minimal, and when you get those, that's great. But to me, I get bored when my classic is running too perfect, honestly. Like, sometimes I struggle with content for the video because I'm like, she's not breaking down, she's not doing anything. We'll go run a bunch of ice cream runs, I'll drive her to work occasionally, you know, and she'll be running like a top. And what am I, can't complain, but in the back of my head, I also know that I'm gonna have to do some work. And so depending on what classic, let's talk about the cost. If it's a classic like a T-Bird, the cost is pretty inexpensive, honestly. Like, these T-Birds, they're not a hyper popular car, you know. Like, a lot of times people want the Cudas, they want the Mustangs. I do love Mustangs, but they want the Mustangs. They want Challengers. And when you have cars that have an increased demand like that, the parts are also going to bring a higher cost because supply and demand, what they are. People know they can get more money for the parts, so they're going to charge more. And it's my own take on it. So if you're out there and you're trying to get a Challenger or something like a CUDA or something really popular, or maybe you find a rare car, those parts can be hard to find. Those are factors you got to think about. So if you're going to daily a classic car, you will potentially have issues. Example, maybe something finally goes out. Like I had the brake booster on my T-Bird went out, and yes, I could have done some redneck things to make it work, but really the correct way was to order the part, which didn't really exist without spending a ton of money, so it meant I needed to send mine out to get rebuilt and get it back, which takes a lot longer. And so if I was trying to daily drive that car, something as simple as a booster, you know, that can be tough. I mean, you're either walking, busting it, or something, you know. So that's something you need to think about. There are a lot of tic-tacky things. An example is with Ghost, I have to reset the points all the time. Could I switch to HEI, which I know everyone's going to just tell me. But I don't want to. That's fine. I don't have to. It's my car. But, you know, for what I do and how much I drive it, I don't mind setting the points every once in a while. But our princess had a 16th birthday photo shoot. We used Ghost in it, which was really cool. Made me super stoked and phenomenal. The photos turned out phenomenal. But driving her across town and back, the points finally went out of adjustment again. And so I got home and I'm like, wasn't gonna do it tonight, to be honest, but tomorrow, next day, whenever I get time, I'll readjust the points again. So that's something that doesn't cost anything, but I gotta tinker with it. Otherwise, it's gonna run like crap. It's not gonna run that good. It's not gonna be fun. Especially a car like that, you want it to run good. That's the whole point. It sounds tough. It sounds burly. The other thing we got to think about is gas. Now, I am not the electric guy. I'm not. Maybe one day someone swoons me with that. But as of this moment, I'm still not an electric guy. So if you're driving an older car, they're not going to get as good gas mileage a lot of times. There are circumstances where they will. There's a lot of small classics out there that get phenomenal gas mileage. A lot. An old T-Bird with a big block V8 that I've rebuilt to be 430 over and high-low cam and all this other stuff that I put on it. Yes, she's not getting spectacular gas mileage, but she also doesn't go that far. So for me, I'm not daily driving it. I take her to ice cream with the family. I take her to work occasionally, but I mean, that's the stuff where it's like, gas mileage doesn't affect you the same way. So that's another thing you gotta think about. You know, yes, maybe they don't get great gas mileage, but I put $20 once a quarter or something in it. Like, I'm not driving her that much. I'm driving her enough to enjoy it. And then the next factor you gotta think about is also the fuel itself going bad. I don't put too much fuel in that car. I rarely fill her up. I haven't filled her up in years because I don't want the gas to sit too long. Modern gas sucks. It used to be better. But anymore, it seems like that car sits a month and that gas is probably gonna go bad. So a month is pretty tight for it to go bad, but you guys get the point. Like, if you have a car that sits a long time, they do have stabilizers, they do have different things that you can put into the fuel to where it'll last longer. But just keep that in mind. If a car's sitting for a long time and you don't drive it and you have a full tank, either you're gonna end up emptying the tank, which it's just not fun. I don't like dealing with gas, I really don't. So what I choose to do is I put a little bit of gas in her more frequently. I'll maybe put a quarter tank in her, drive it till it scares me, and then I'll put more gas in it. but I'm also going around the block. I'm staying right here in my central little location, you know, so it's not a big deal. And also it's carbureted, so if I run out of gas, not the end of the world. Okay, so the next topic as far as classic cars is storage. You need to think about storage. You don't want to store a classic car out in the elements. You're wasting your money. These cars made it 30, 60, 50 years. Don't put it outside under a tree dumping wax and leaves and all that stuff. If that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. But I actually, because right now we're in a situation where I don't have a garage for the first time, and I don't even know how long. And so what I ended up doing is I went to Harbor Freight and I bought a carport for $100. Now, $100 for a carport, it's actually lasted, I think I'm going on my second year. Going on my second year. I don't think I'll get a third. I don't think so. It looks like it's starting to feel the elements. But we've had terrible heat because we're in Tucson, Arizona. We've had monsoons, haboobs, all those dust storms that go along with that. You know, that is what a haboob is. But, you know, we've got all that cruddy weather, and it's held up. Keeps the sun off of her. I will tell you, I am not a car cover guy. I had a car years ago that I put a car cover on and somehow it stuck to the paint and it caused more damage than it ever protected. So I was like, that's kind of silly. Now, mind you, maybe it was a cheap one, maybe I could have bought a more expensive one. I would take all of those answers into consideration. If I ever needed to go the car cover route, I would still investigate, but maybe that's still an option. But I've had bad experiences with them, destroying my paint. So, anyway, and then lastly, cars are a form of identity for some people, including myself. I love my cars. The ones I've gotten rid of that I love, I really miss. I used to have an Audi that I really loved. Wish I still had that car. Wish I had my original blue 65 T-Bird. If you guys don't know, the reason my white one is called Ghost, it's kind of like the ghost of T-Bird's past. I will never probably find that car again because you can't track serial numbers that old. But anyway, I'm curious about your guys' feedback. At the end of the day, the last thing I'll kind of bring up as far as cost and cars and then time. One other big cost factor, especially in Arizona, every state, every country is different, but my registration and my insurance are incredibly cheap on my Classic. In other words, the operating cost of that car, even with terrible gas mileage, is still, it's way cheaper than a car payment because I own it. If you're in a situation where you have a payment, that would not apply, obviously, but I own it, so that's a huge cost savings compared to the other cars I have. The gas mileage, although it's worse than the other cars, it's not worse by that much. Yes, it is, but I mean, it doesn't also offset the fact that my insurance, what I pay per month for my other cars, I pay for a year on my Classic. So that saves a lot too. And then my registration tags, they're like a 16th, I don't know, it's not really, it's probably like a 10th of the cost of what it costs to insure my other vehicles, or register my other vehicles. Arizona's that way because of how we do our tag system. And then also, I don't have to run it through emissions because it's a Classic, so I save that too. Those are pretty important when you start thinking about, if you're like me with multiple cars, spend a whole paycheck on registration. I mean, but seriously, it does get expensive, and it's something that you actually have to consider. And then at the end of the day, the last bit is, you know, some guys golf a lot, some guys tinker with cars, some play volleyball, some play basketball, football, whatever. Like, I don't know how volleyball got in there, but I'm sure they do. And wiffle ball, I don't know. Just, you know, like everybody's got their thing that they do as a hobby. If you get a classic car, commit the time. Once a week, once a day, whatever makes sense for you, but at least like once a week or once every other week, a good chunk of a little bit of time to tinker on them, do little things. Doesn't take a lot of money to do these things. And if you do that, you will truly have a very enjoyable experience, in my opinion. I think. If you like that stuff. If you don't like wrenching on cars, go buy a brand new something. And that's okay too. That's more power to you. But at the end of the day, my synopsis is if you want a classic car, if you're willing to wrench and willing to learn if you don't know, if you do know, you already know that this video is not teaching you anything. I think this is more a point for someone trying to get in the hobby, you know what I mean? But if you're trying to get in the hobby, I would say you do not have to break the bank. You can do a little bit of extra cash here and there to do the fun stuff on it. There's all sorts of fun things you can do. Like my car, I painted it myself. Okay, that saved a ton of money. Is it perfect? No. Did I enjoy it? Like, it was the most rewarding thing ever. It was fantastic. I'm so glad I painted that car. It really was pretty awesome. So, guys, thanks for watching. This is the Vice Garage Auto Blog. We are all about cars. Beautiful cars. Cars that you respect. Could be a Ferrari, could be a Thunderbird, could be a Tesla. Nope. But it could be anything that has, you know, that je ne sais quoi that we all love about cars. My median tends to stick to classics. I do love Porsches. I do love me some Lamborghini, which I cannot afford. I do love most supercars. I love most classic cars. I've had Trans Ams. I've had classic trucks, square bodies, old Fords. I've had old Blazers. I've had, what else came out? Motorcycles, quads, all that stuff. But yeah, I guess the best cars that I've owned is I had a 77 Trans Am and a 65 T-Bird, and now my 64 T-Bird. So I've thoroughly enjoyed every one of them, and they've given me great life experiences, and I encourage you guys to get out there and get involved, get in the hobby, and teach your kids how to do it too. But as always, thank you for watching. Leave your comments below. If you think I'm completely off base, tell me. If you think I'm right, tell me. Like and subscribe. I need those likes and I need those subscribes so we can build this thing back up. And there's some cool stuff coming down the way on this channel. Just wait, you'll see. Also, you might check out my brother's channel. It's I think he's called Spider Garage or I Spider. He's gonna kill me because I just massacred that. But it's also I'm gonna put a link. I'll put a link right here. His channel's been blowing up. He makes some cool content. He just did a video on like a game show for cars. But let's support the car community. Let's have a great one, and see you guys later.
Come on, Dad, let's go.